So if we touched upon the last couple of weeks, what are the first few things that we can recollect? We were talking about what is the key characteristics or key attributes that we define with respect to the spirit in us, the consciousness in us. The first thing that we said is that's the only thing that exists, which is the ultimate truth. Everything else is untruth from a philosophical angle, right? And we call that Satyaha, Atma Satyaha, which is the ultimate truth. And we also talked about the temporariness of it. That's the only thing that's permanent is that. Third thing we said is that it is incomprehensible, it is not conceivable, it is beyond our intellect. Then we also said that it is something that cannot be, it doesn't perform any action by itself. It is an enabler for an action, but by itself, it is not doing any karma, not doing any activity, nor is it a recipient of any action. It doesn't take any result. It enables a result, but it's not taking any result on it. So therefore, it is a witness. It is purely a witness. So that's the first thing, therefore, we have to remember. We use this terminology in Vedanta called subject and object. Object are the things that we see, we transact with it every day, right? We're sitting on an object, we transact with an object. But then there is something that is observing all these objects, which is referred to as the subject. So subject, witness, each of them, they mean the same thing. The subject is the ultimate goal for any spiritual person, is to understand what that subject is, what that ultimate inner nature is, in whatever way you call it, right? So sort of simply, we have to look at it as this way, so when we talk about awareness, right, we say, are you aware? Are you aware? Are you aware? What is this meaning of aware? We have to ask ourselves. What is making the mind aware that I am actually getting angry? What is making the mind aware that I'm going through certain challenges, even thoughts, etc.? What is making the thought even happen? This whole context of awareness, what is making the awareness happen is that ultimate truth. So here, when we talk about reality, which is what Satyaha means, we can look at it from the standpoint of classification of realities, to a few categories of them. It is said that there are three primary forms of reality. The first one, which is a very obvious one, is the thing that we do have every day. We call it Vyavaharika Satya or transactional reality. It is something, probably it's common to everybody. It is a materialistic thing that we refer to, right? In the world, whatever the experiences are, right? Let's say I'm sitting on a chair. That chair is the chair for everyone. Nobody says this chair is a table, right? Chair is a chair, table is a table, and so there is no ambiguity about what that particular object or that experience is, right? So that is looked at, or we don't say chair and table are made up of wood. That comes at the next level. But first level is what I do every day as an experience, as a worldly experience. That comes under Vyavaharika Satya. That is the transactional reality, or you can call it common reality or objective reality, whichever way you look at it. So let's say in a battlefield, therefore, or let's say even somewhere, in the war of Mahabharata, or even in also none other than myself in another form, and hence I will not battle with him. I will not raise my gun, etc. It doesn't work, right? You're there, and that enemy has to be dealt with as an enemy. So that comes under objective reality. So there's no absolute, ambiguity about that at all. Second thing comes as what I call a subjective reality. What is subjective reality? By the meaning word itself, it means that everyone's reality of this is different, right? So, and we live in this world pretty much 90% of the time, if you look at it. Each one's truth is different. All of us sitting here, we'll say, what this is what I consider as correct. This is what I should do. This I believe is the right thing to do. Somebody else might disagree with that thing, but you are absolutely sure that's the right thing to do. For you, that is the truth, right? What decisions you make everyday life is based on what you consider as the truth. And it's not about saying whether it's right or wrong, but it is that also is another form of reality. This is referred to as subjective reality. Somebody else might say, judge it and say what you're doing is right, what you're doing is wrong, doesn't matter. But you are very convinced about it yourself. Now, slowly as you get into the knowledge, etc., you get you remove some misconceptions about that subjective reality, and that's part of one's growth. But every day, we live in this world called subjective reality. And the third reality is the absolute reality, which is what Vedanta is talking about. Is the one where, there is absolutely nothing that exists excepting one thing, right? And there is no, what do you call, nobody can say, anything different about it. It's just simple one truth. And that truth is that there's one unchangeable, impermanent reality, and that is the only one that is the absolute truth and nothing else. Everything, if you look at Vyavaharika Satya or the transactional reality or the subjective one, all the objective, and everything is subject to change. Your conception of something today will change tomorrow. Your conception of somebody or your thoughts of somebody or your own thoughts of something today will be different than what it was 5 years earlier because you've been matured. But what doesn't change is the last absolute reality because there's nothing else, right? So this just just for our understanding, we have to understand that these are three things that we do every day. We just need to, and you can't apply subjective reality. There are certain places you have to use certain things, right? With certain people, you use certain terminology, right? With a child, you can't say chair is all wood, and hence you can sit on a chair rather than a dining table. You have to deal with some people in the way, they understand it. So moving on, then we came to this 22nd stanza, which said that this whole process of death and rebirth, etc., is nothing but a change in your wardrobe. This is very, very simple but very profound verse, right? To look at it from the sense that, what is it that you're changing every time? That there's something that is unwanted, something which has served its purpose, no longer required in my life. I need to change it. Hence, similarly, I also remove the instrument called body that has been given to me. When I say I here, I'm talking about something that is a clothing, similar like a clothing. There's a body given as a clothing around, the spirit. And that clothing has to also be similarly changed, either through aging process or when the purpose of that particular body is served in a particular environment or a particular family, whatever it might be. But it has to go through a change. And that process continues. And each time we do that process, what are we doing? We are not only, we are evolving, we are actually going on like a pilgrimage. We are climbing Mount Everest, right? One base to the second base to the third base and so forth, over a period of multiple births. So 24th verse onwards, 24th verse talks about another aspect of it, and it's done in a very simple form. It is almost giving an explanation of what is unseen with respect to the seen. So we'll chant 23rd and 24th, and we'll talk about what it refers to. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, nachainam क्लेदयन्त्यापो न शोषयति मारुतः अच्छेद्योऽयम् अदाह्योऽयम् अक्लेद्यो शोष्य एव च नित्यः सर्वगतस्तानुः अचलोऽयं सनातनः. So the first thing it talks about, it says no weapon can kill this. See, all of this is meant for us to, sort of, because we say it's not can't be comprehended by normal intellect, but then you have to still give it some, some live examples with respect to what we deal with every day. We deal with a knife every day, right? Some cutting instrument every day. So essentially, you say this can't be cut. Here, you know, again, we'll go through this very logically from an understanding perspective. So what is it that can be, that can be acted upon or cut or whatever, right? If you look at it, you can cut only something that is grosser than itself. I'll give you an example. See, supposing I take a, what you call, axe, right, to cut the wood. I take a bullet to shoot. Can the axe go beyond what is wood? An earth element. Can an axe cut water? Can an axe cut air? Can an axe cut fire? Can an axe cut space? Not possible. All of these are subtler than earth element. Similarly, the bullet. So therefore, anything that is subtler, and Atman or the spirit is subtler than even space. So therefore, there is no gross instrument, right, can do anything. It is totally indestructible, right? This particular verse, these two verses are meant to say that, this is something even the best of real life people can't do anything with it. It's untouchable. So weapons cannot cut it. Second, it says that fire cannot burn it. Similar principle. What does fire, what does fire do? Fire burns everything that is in space, isn't it? Fire does not do anything to itself. It cannot burn itself. It burns anything that exists in space, right? Whether it's paper or wood or, anything you give it, it will try to, put it to ashes. But space itself, right, is not, even though that object is in space, space by itself is untouched. You understand, right? I am burning something in space, but is the space by itself damaged by any way? No, not at all. So space remains untouched. So just like the space can remain untouched, and space is grosser than even the spirit that we are talking about, and hence fire cannot do any damage to it. So this is the second principle. Because these are all things that can, you and I every day go through this, right? We get wet in the rain. We get, fire through, somewhere accidentally we touch the stove and we burn our fingers, etc. All this is to just say those common things that we deal with in the body is only at a body level. This is much, much deeper. So it's to say that it doesn't do anything to it. Water cannot do anything. So tell me, what does water typically wet? It can wet only where there is a porous surface, right? Let's say a cloth, or let's say there's a sponge. I put water in it, it gets soaked. Even in an object, which is earth element, if I take a sponge, which is very porous, and I take a block of steel or iron, which is harder, even though there are pores in it, you will not see any water going into it. Over a period of time, it gets tarnished. There are blemishes, there are rusting, etc. that happens. Right. So even in the earthy element, there are differences in terms of what type of damage water can do. Right. So similar, but on the other hand, now what did we learn? The first thing, principles wise, this is all pervading. Divine is all pervading. Self is all pervading. Atma is all pervading. If it is all pervading, where is the question of even anything being porous? Every nanometer of what we know of is pervaded by that one element. And only when there is a space, only when there is a porous element, right? Only then we are talking about anything, anything getting wet, right? So the question of getting corroded by water doesn't even come into the picture. This is the ultimate truth. So what are we saying in these three cases is that Atma or the Atman or the spirit is cannot be destroyed one bit. The last example that is taken is wind cannot dry it. Again, the same concept, right? What is dry? What can get dried only if something is wet. You dehydrate something which has got a trace of moisture. There is nothing called moisture. Everything is, the consciousness is really nothingness. There's nothing that exists in it. It's just simple, subtler than space. Space itself is so subtle. It's even subtler than space. There's no question of even moisture. You see, moisture, when we talk about humidity, etc., we are not talking humidity in space. We are talking humidity in the air, humidity in the wind. Space is untouched. So, therefore, wind cannot touch it. So, either water, nor a knife, nor a fire, nor water can do anything to what we are talking about here. And this is what is referred to as Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana means what? Something that was ancient, untouchable, indestroyable. It existed then, it exists today, it will exist forever. Totally blemishless. This is Sanatana, that last word that came in the 24th verse. And it also talks about a couple of other things. It says Sanu and Achala. Achal means what? Achal means what? It is something that is moving, right? Achala means what? Something that is firm. Sthanu means it is something that is stable. You take a tree, for example. A tree, right, is very stable at the root level, right, where there is a trunk. But depending on the wind, let's say there's a cyclone, a tree might get toppled. The trunk might still be there, but somewhere the top branches might fall, etc. Right? Here we are talking about stable at the bottom, stable at the top. Right? That is where this distance. So here, so wind cannot do anything to it. So this truth, ultimate truth, right, is stable at all levels. So these two verses, in some sense, give a pointer to that word Sanatana, ancient and yet applicable today, right? And it will be applicable thousands and thousands of years later. And it also says one other thing, the Sanatana or this state of consciousness is the same state that is realized by anybody in this world, irrespective of religion, irrespective of place. So what a seer here, what a seer in Egypt, what a seer in Australia, and human beings, etc., wherever they are, right? All of them realize ultimately the same truth, irrespective of wherever they are. So these, if you notice, from the 11th verse we started, right, where he went into the deepest of knowledges, but still it's given in a very capsule form. It is just to give it's almost like, a little taste of the gulab jamun, but a lot more has to be said, which is going to come in the rest of Bhagavad Gita chapter. But it's to give a taste of, wow, this is what it is. It's like the headlines, as they call it. So, so this is what was there in the 24th verse. The 25th verse, is summarizes it in a lot of ways. So the 11th to 25th verse, in some sense, give the highest knowledge, in the 14 verses, right, or 15 verses. The 25th verse summarizes all of this. It just says it is unchangeable, imperceptible, and it existed in the past, it will exist today, it will be the same in the future. So given all of this, why is Krishna doing all of this to Arjuna? He's saying, boss, you're grieving about, you go back to the 11th verse. What did he say? You're grieving about something that you should not grieve about. All the saints have realized it, but you are still ignorant. And to say why he was ignorant, he went through these 14 verses. that the self, the people that you're talking about getting killed, etc., are not the body. They are much, much beyond the body. And what they are made up of is going to continue into one birth, into the next birth, into the next birth. So this is the bodies are going to leave. So why do you grieve? Why do you mourn? Fight, fight, fight. So even in the 25th verse, he says, back up, wake up and fight. Wake up, wake up. So, you have heard Guruji say this, wake up. What does this wake up mean? Wake up means come into the knowledge space. Realize that knowledge that you have gained and apply that knowledge. No, and don't sit idle, mourning on small, small little things. Realize that this is impermanent. It's going to go away. Realize, go to the higher truth, right? And do those practices. So therefore, the 25th verse is to bring Arjuna to at least some level of, bit of a motivation to say that, all the things that, I've given you enough indicators why you should fight and why I meant that you are not, why the seers know much more than you do, why you're ignorant. And it's also for us to come to some, this highest level of knowledge on what are certain attributes of that higher spirit that we are talking about. So now comes, the next few stanzas are going to come, as a little bit of a devil's advocate, as I call it. It is going to a space where, what if somebody says, I understand all of this, right? You're saying, spirit is not perceptible. You're saying spirit is, can't be experienced, etc. What is the proof? What is the proof? Somebody might ask this question. So, that's one of the beauties about our teaching is that there is no imposition of teaching. Everybody is welcome to not blindly take anything, but ask questions, right? Why? Tell me, give me reasons why I should still, continue with Bhagavad Gita. What is in it there, right? So here, what is the common notion, even for many of us, maybe years back, is that this body is the one that, ends, starts, perishes, body is again reborn. And Atma, the concept of Atma was not there. Atma is something in the heavens, right? There's a God in the heavens that blesses his body, and the body that is supposed to do good work. All of that was given. You do good work, etc., etc. But it's not that, that we are made up of, an outer layer called the body. That innermost layer is not that, right? And so that came later. So here, the people who follow the other side will look at it and say, for me, body is what it is, man. I want to enjoy everything in life. So-called self, I know my body really well. I take good care of it. I do exercises, blah, 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 etc. And body changes. And this person who says what the body is the self knows that body also changes. Body also ages. At some point, this body is also going to perish. So that part is common knowledge to everybody. Because why is done that everybody sees people around them dying. I see my elders, leave this body, die. I see insects, animals, and everything around me almost dying every day, right? Mosquitoes are dying, some insects are dying, all kinds of things are happening. I might have a pet dog sometime, and it leaves after that. Dogs don't live beyond 7-8 years. So you see that pet dying. So, all of that. So then, there is a temporariness aspect also to this body that comes to reality to everybody. You not internalize it, but it knows that it is going to happen someday. So let's chant 26th, 27th verses and we'll get into it. Ata chainam nitya jatam nityam va manyase mritam तथा पित्वं महाबाहो नैवं शोषितुमर्हसि जातस्ति हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च तस्मात् परिहार्येते न त्वं शोषितुमर्हसि. So 26th and 27th, let's go through them. So 27th verse, So sort of builds on that one. So, so here the concept is that, you don't have to believe that there is a self. That's what Krishna wants to tell Arjuna. You think Atma is something that is born and dying, you believe it. But still realize that the body is going through a change. Body is going to, perish and a new body is come. Even those atheists, etc., all believe that there is some life is, if you look at sometimes, right, you realize at some point life is coming out of somewhere. Somewhere something, is born. You see insects coming out of worms to nowhere. You see suddenly there is a rain and these, what are those called? Those insects, right, that come during rainfall that does a lot of itchiness on your skin. उसको क्या कहते हैं?
I think, are they fireflies? Are you talking
Yeah,
about
fireflies or whatever they call it. Yeah, so these things, right? Kambli puchi, we call it in Tamil. I don't know what it's called. தெரியுமா உங்களுக்கு Bhavani ji, you remember what kambli puchi is in English? Yeah, anyway, the point, you know what I'm talking about, right? They come out of nowhere. And
Caterpillar.
then out of nowhere, they also disappear.
It's called caterpillar.
Yeah, some caterpillar. So they come into the caterpillar family. They live their life for some period of time, a few days, and then they disappear. You look at a moth on a rainy day, right? It suddenly pops up, hundreds of them, worms, right? You look at, I don't know how many of you do composting of, whatever vegetable waste, etc., right? I do that constantly. It's been a while since I did it, just a few weeks back I did it. So, what you'll notice is that you just put vegetable waste into a container and, and allow it for it to build the compost. You just go a few days later or just a week later, suddenly you'll find hundreds of worms out of nowhere. Where did they come from? And literally, I mean, you when you have to do a lot of churning of that compost, you have to be very careful that you don't kill those worms accidentally. But it's amazing when you look at things, right? Some life, we see this life existence coming out of nowhere, existing for a period of time, and then goes out. So it's telling again, Arjuna, boss, life is this particular state is just here for a small period of time. For some people, that lifelong is just only a few minutes. For some, it might be a few hours. Some might be a few days. For some, it might be a few years. But everybody is going to go through this. So don't mourn, grieve over, your brethren who are sitting on the other side fighting the battle, because they are also going to die someday. So on to the 28th verse. Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktanidadanyeva tatraka paridevana. This is a beautiful logical stanza. This, talks about the principle of cause and effect. You and I know, right? Anything that is right now an effect has a cause built to it. There's nothing that's possible without a cause. Everything has got a cause. So if I take the principle, therefore, for me to, let's just take an example, right? Therefore, something that, what is an effect? Effect means something that is manifesting. For something to manifest, the same thing, right? So you take even an emotion. Right? Guruji has talked about this. Let's say we all say, I get angry. And some people say, I don't never get angry. So where is that anger? Anger is manifesting when there is a particular situation or an experience that is show it. But that anger is in an unmanifested state deep within in our subconscious mind all the time there. For some people, it doesn't manifest because they suppress it. For others, it comes out very clearly in a manifested form. So whatever comes, and after some time that anger subsides, then it gets into an unmanifested form. So everything in life, just as we said earlier, comes out of nowhere, comes for a certain time, exists, goes back into a non-existential state. Similarly, There is a cause, there is an effect, there is again a cause. So what is, if you take another example, right? We take just a tree today, right? That exists. Let's say I plant a mango seed today. That mango seed I buy from a nursery or something, he just puts in that particular packet, it's a mango seed. I look at it, I can't figure out whether it's a mango seed. I just trust it, it's a mango seed. Then have you ever figured out by smell of it, you'll never even smell one bit of mango in that particular seed. And yet in it, you know, the, the mango is there in an unmanifested form, isn't it? So the moment you plant it, put soil over it, water it, and take care of it, put manure, etc., over a period of time, over a few years, right? That builds up into a tree, and after 4 or 5 years, there's fruits that come out. Yes. So that mango now has become manifested from that little seed, which was, no one would have even comprehended that there was a mango sitting in it. And after one eats that mango gets thrown away. And in the middle of the mango are all the seeds. They go into an unmanifested seed in the form of seeds. And somewhere that same seed, somebody throws it, goes underground, over soil, over rain, again builds up into another tree. That is constantly happening everywhere. So therefore, when we look at what we call as creation, the word creation of a body, creation of anything for that matter, or creation even of an emotion, it's an effect. Creation is nothing but an effect. That effect has a cause built into it. That cause is the unmanifested state of the effect. Right? So, all of us celebrated Diwali recently, isn't it? So some of us would have bought those so-called flower pots, as they call it, right? This triangular shaped one. You buy it from the shop, right? And it looks like yet another shape there. The moment you light it, what happens? It's pretty much like a flowery blossoming of all flowers, all different colors. It blossoms, and it's a beautiful sight, right? Just for 10, 20 seconds, whatever it is. Again, what is happening? Unmanifested flower pot in that box that you buy, and then you get it, and then that becomes ashes, and those ashes are again used for whatever else that they do, to build the next cracker and so forth. So everything, so goes through this change. Take a dream, for example. What is a dream? Dream is something, somewhere in our subconscious mind. Guruji has talked about all the types of dreams. I'll go into that. But one of the types of dreams is the impressions that one carries. That is a cause. Right? Now it has to express itself. Maybe it's not able to express it in the waking state. So it expresses itself in the dream state, where, you imagine yourself to be the king or a queen or whatever, with different ornaments, different kids, etc. Whatever it is, it comes up in a dream out of nowhere. Right? It manifests itself where you are into a totally imaginative world. And the moment you wake up, the next second it goes back into an unmanifested state. For some, those impressions are gone. For some, those impressions are still there, and it might come up as another dream later. Similarly, what he's telling Arjuna, dying is also the same thing. Dying is going from birth, was essentially what? Unmanifested to manifest. And from manifest to unmanifested is the dying state. That is again going to manifest itself into another body, another place, another family, another surrounding later on. This is the cycle that we are constantly going to go through. So he's just bringing in different reasoning, right? So even though he may not have brought in, and nowhere in this is the concept of Atman or spirit or, unchangeable, all of that. This is just common, logical, rational thinking that is giving to Arjuna. To do what? To say that this body is perishable, it is going to change. So moving on, if we go to the 29th verse, we'll chant that first. This is a beautiful verse. If you just listen to it itself is so nice. आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवद् वदति तदैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैन्यमन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वाप्येन श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्. The word ascharya means that itself will tell you ascharya, wonder, so many things, wonder, wonder, wonder at the start of all sentences. So here he is trying to glorify why one should be in the knowledge. And this, remember in Bhagavad Gita, Dhyana Shlokam, I mentioned in one of the verses, I think the third or fourth verse, that, this Bhagavad Gita is essentially milking of all the cows from the Upanishad cows. This verse is one such example. This particular verse that we are talking about, the 29th verse, is extracted from one of the Upanishads called Kathopanishad. And those of us who have learned, heard Guruji's commentary of Kathopanishad, what is Kathopanishad? The commentary where, Nachiketa gets knowledge, supreme knowledge from who? Yama. So we'll not go into that, but the essence of that Kathopanishad, where also the same glorification happens of the knowledge of the self, is also, used here in this verse, not word to word, but very similar essence, very similar meaning. So here we have to just, step back a little bit, ask ourselves, what is it that all of us are looking for in life? Right? All of us, right? Very simple. We are looking for basics. We are looking for growth. We are looking for a sense of fulfillment, sense of happiness, right? Some sense of security. It's very important. Insecurity bothers us. Security from what? Whether it be money, family, job, all of those small elements, simple things. And this is all that we are pursuing for. And what do? The question is, who provides all of this? Who provides a sense of fulfillment? Who provides, who provides the sensation of looking for goals? One might say, I define the goals. But what is it that makes you define a goal? Why is it the goal that you define is not, the same thing that is made by somebody else? And yet, therefore, there is something, that you possess, based upon your past experiences that is there. But then there's also another thing that has propelled you to take a particular goal, right? Made you take a particular goal or ambition as something that you want to do. But all of these goals, ultimately, not an empty goal just for the sake of tick mark, right? It is meant to serve the purpose of sense of fulfillment, sense of achievement, sense of security, etc., right? All of this. If it were not there, you would not have a goal. You would not just do a goal just for the sake of doing a goal. So ultimately, those other factors are that's the most important. Goal is just a, fulcrum or a what do you call, why am I using the word? Yeah, it is just maybe an incentive, or maybe it is just a starting point wherein we won't achieve all the other things. So who provides it, right? And where do we look for? So who provides it is the first question. And what do most people look for? Where do they look for to do this? Obviously get degrees, seek degrees. All of it is fine. You look for degrees, you look for possessions, you look for friends, places, and all of this. And sooner or later, there's a realization that comes is that, despite all of this, and I'm still not having a sense of fulfillment. I've got everything, yet I am not fulfilled. And that's when it dawns on something. There is something more to life, right? And they read for books, they go around, they look for teachers, look for gurus, etc. And then comes a realization that so-called security that I was looking for, that was all outside, there is something within me that provides the ultimate security. whatever I have in possession, whatever I have been through, whatever was, you know, is being given to me. It is all happening. It's almost happening out of nowhere. Magically, it's been happening. I have not, understood it fully why it's happening, but it's all happening. So that realization then comes in. That is a wonder. So when somebody hears about this glory, that, everything is taken care of, you know, why do you worry? That is a wonder. When you realize it, right, either your own internalization or somebody else telling you, oh, you've got all of this. Then you hear from somebody else about your life, then it's a wonder. So sometimes you do certain things and magically something happens out of grace. That's a wonder. When you hear something about yourself or hear something about others' experiences, it's a wonder. Or you hear about, spiritual teachings from a teacher or a guru, wow, feeling, right? That awe feeling, that wonder feeling. It is not something that can be put in words. It's just something within. It is just looking at, a nature sometimes, or what a beautiful waterfall or a bud or a rainbow. You just look at it and just for the next 30 seconds, you're glued to it. You become, and when all this wonder happens, what is it that's happening inside? We blossom. Because when we are in that wonder, we are connected with that inner space that is making everything happen. And that wonder, that awe state that we have, right? It puts us, connects us so much. And that ultimately is, some realization come over a period of time. All the things that I had in my life, the sense of fulfillment, the sense of being successful, and the word success loses its meaning after some time because success is not what we think is success, right? All that clarity comes into one's life. And you look at wonder as much more than all this success stuff. So here, what is this particular stanza? It says, some people see it as a wonder. Some people speak of it as a wonder. Some people hear of this as a wonder. And yet nobody knows it well. That is because, it is, it's again trying to relate to the unknown from the known. From the known, we can, hearing, perception, it comes under the level of perception, right? Waterfalls, hearing good about all the magic, miracles that happen. All of that is easily perceived. I can write a book on it. And yet I cannot describe what is the root cause of all of these wonders. What is it that makes all these wonders happen? What is it that, behind the wonder itself? That is what, the stanza is highlighting, is that go after that wonder. Look, see everything that's happening in life. Wonderful, the experience after Sudarshan Kriya, the experience after Sanyam. What is it? No, because Gurudev is making everything happen, but just that feeling, I'm in a different space here. What is it? So that glorification, just wondering about that, is what he wants us to realize constantly. And whenever we are in that space, we are so much connected with him, connected with the divine. So the 30th verse, we'll chant it. But before we chant the 30th verse, so when we talk about, let me just see the time here. Yeah. So when we talk about our states that we live in, right, every day, we normally refer to as a waking state, which is what we are in right now, right? As we all, and then we have a dream state, which we talked about. And there's a third state also, right? So waking state, all of us are aware, nothing to be talked about. Everything is alive. Mind is alive, body is alive, sense organs are alive, perception, everything is alive. What happens in a dream state? Sense organs are all shut off, isn't it? Mind is alive. Of course, breath is alive. And yet, there is another set of sense organs that are working. In a dream, you're still doing a lot of action. You're maybe a king, you're running somewhere, yet your sense organs are shut off. You know that for a fact. But another set of, experience are held. It's hard to explain, but so sense organs are shut off and yet the senses are working. That is a dream state. That itself is a wonder. What is making all that happen? The third thing is the deep sleep state. That is even more, profound to think about it, right? Deep sleep state, body is gone. When I say body is gone, body's no knowledge about the body, mind, intellect, all of them are gone. And of course, sense organs are shut off. Sense organs are already shut off in the dream state. There's one level deeper. The difference between dream and deep sleep is what? Mind is also gone to rest. So, and what is it that we experience in deep sleep? Can't be described. It is simply nothingness. Simply nothingness. It is simply the state of I am. Guruji talks about, right? I am. That state is what it is in. We are not aware. But when are we aware? We are aware when we wake up in the morning. I say I had a wonderful sleep here. I was totally knocked off completely. I had such a sound, we say sound sleep. When you say sound sleep means what? I had a wonderful deep sleep time. Good 4 hours, 5 hours of good deep sleep. And the beauty about the deep sleep, other than our culture, nobody's even touched upon this particular thing. What exactly is happening to it? And if you look at it from the thought process we just went through in a few verses, everything has gone into an unmanifested state. You're breathing, but your thoughts, your mind, your intellect, everything has gone into an unmanifested state. You wake up, everything comes back into a manifested state. The same thoughts that you had the previous night comes back up. All your priorities that you had set up earlier comes up. Right? So the deep sleep state, the beauty is what? It can't be talked about by itself. What it can be talked about is the after effect of it the next morning as to how it felt. But you can't write an essay on it. And everybody will say the same thing. When you ask somebody else, here, how was your deep sleep? I don't know. I had a wonderful sleep. That's all I can say. So whether when you're traveling from here to Australia and there you sleep, in Australia also when you get up, it's the same deep sleep state. Each and every human being, right, irrespective of where they are, irrespective of their race, religion, culture, whatever else it is, experience the same deep sleep state. And it's a state that is not, it should just, it's a state to just marvel upon. That's the reason I'm bringing that up. It's just to talk about when we talk about this self, so forth, with all these attributes, deep sleep state is just simply that. And it's the same thing. What's the difference between that and when we do meditation? Meditation, we are aware, right? Especially when we go into deep meditation, total lack of no body, no senses, no thoughts, no intellect, no mind, total nothingness, right? Those of us who've done Siam or meditation or advanced courses, etc., would have all experienced this, right? That's the state. So those of us who have been in the path can relate to the glory of what we are talking about, that wonder element. So deep sleep is also a wonder element. The more we ponder about it, even think about it, your eyes will let up, what is happening. So the 30th verse is going to do a summarizing of this. And before that, I need to tell you a little story. Time to do a little bit of lightning here. So what's the story? A person is going on a long trip from Trivandrum to, let's say, Jammu. right? And it's on those days. It's not a Vande Bharat train that goes there and maybe day or two. It used to take literally 3, 4 days, nights to go reach those places. In 10 years back, etc. And it's a nice AC coach. He gets in, and he's a businessman. And those days, businessmen, there was no concept of GPay or whatever, rupee pay, etc., etc. So normally they would carry a cash, if not a check. But most times, cash transactions were predominant at that time. So he's carrying cash, and he carries it, in his dress or in a bag or whatever it is. And businessmen typically want to keep track of the fact that the money is going to be given to somebody else for the transaction. I need to make sure I have it. So he's sitting in the AC coach, and there are other passengers also opposite to him. So he's counting the money. Opposite to him is another man. That man happens to be a habitual, what you call, robber. He's done it a few times, and he looks at this boy. This is not small currency notes. These are looking like big currency notes. Somehow I need to get this, right? I'll become a rich man after this trip. And he knows, he checks with this other person how long he's saying, I'm going to go all the way to Jammu. He knows at least 3 nights are there. And this person also knows that, I can travel. So I have good opportunity to do this. So they concert, they go to sleep. The moment, everybody gets knocked out, as we said, in the deep sleep, that's the best time to do the robbery. So he gets up from his bed, opens the boxes, this, that, etc., finds nothing, goes to sleep. He says, anyway, there's enough time. I'm not too worried. I'll get my hands on it one day here. Next day, the morning, the same person, businessman, is again counting to make sure the money is there. The same thing repeats. And, goes on. Last day comes. And, sometime during the day, they have to get down. Right? So he is, shocked at himself. He says, I'm a habitual robber. I've done so many robberies, yet I've not been able to crack this. What's going on? So he confesses to the businessman. I'll tell you honestly, I was captivated by what you have been counting every day, and somehow I want to get my hands on it. I didn't get it. Where have you been hiding it? So this person laughed. He said, I kept in a place where you would probably not even look at. So I said, what is it? What do you mean? He said, every day, right, before we go to sleep, in the AC coach, they give you a nice blanket, you put it, and you put a woolen blanket, and then a pillow, everything. And, you get everything ready, use the washroom, come back. Hopefully you don't get disturbed after that. Sleep, have good night, good deep sleep, get up in the next morning. So he said, whenever you went to the washroom after getting the bed ready, I would place the money pack under your pillow. And you would come back and sleep. I would go after that to the washroom, come back, and you would get up, look at everything else, right? So this person was shocked. It was right underneath me. It was right in my reach, and yet I did not grab it. This story is to illustrate one thing, which is what the 30th verse says. We'll read it and then we'll get on it. Dehi nityamavadyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shoshitu marhasi. This says that whatever we talked about dwells within you. So there is an indweller in you that's the most powerful. Come to this reality, right? So your body is just a container, but the indweller in it is ever imperishable. It goes through no change, and that's ultimately the goal of the whole thing. So what does it tell us? Right? And our sages have also said this, right? We look for everywhere else for happiness, excepting to see that there is something within me that can give me that same contentment and happiness. Right in my reach, right? What do sages say? It is within your reach, it is very near, yet it's very far away. It is very near, mean what it's in you, and yet it's far away means there's a lot of effort required to reach there, right? So so we have to just remember that pillow example to say that it is within my reach, and I have to put my full effort to get there. Hmm. So so this 30th stanza, right? So if you look at from the 11th stanza to 30th stanza, it was all about, you know, a higher nature. It was about initially about the spirit or the divinity or the self or Atma. And then he touched a little bit about, even if it is anatma, still there is a temporariness, you're going to die and hence don't grieve, start fighting. So that was considered from a philosophical angle. So the beauty about this particular chapter is he's going to peel it in very different ways. Krishna first gives a philosophical, which is the highest teaching. Now he has to come to, a little bit more common reality, which is what? A dharmic angle. Dharmic angle. What is dharmic angle? What is your nature? What is your sadharma? And what is it that you're here for? Do that, right? So he's going to touch upon that in the next few verses. This we will touch upon in the following set of classes. So we'll continue there. I'm going to just close this here.